It's an absolute travesty and a joke, isn't it?
It's worse than that. This is when you say it's not Trump derangement syndrome. That's funny, but this is a banana republic. The great Newt Gingrich, one of the lions of American politics, former Speaker of the House, he did the math. You know, Colorado is not a very big state, but almost 2 million Americans in Colorado voted for President Trump, which means these 4 judges that didn't hear a case. President Trump hasn't been charged with insurrection, let alone convicted. 4 judges by themselves said, yeah, he's an insurrectionist. You're not going to be allowed to vote for him, which means 1 judge per 400,000 Americans in that state disenfranchised them. It's one thing to disagree with a politician, but to say the American people aren't allowed to choose him. And you know what the level of lunacy is? Afterwards, the state officials said, you're not even permitted to manually write President Trump's name on the ballot's blank spaces. This is the level of disrespect for our Constitution and the will of the American people.
It seems incredible, doesn't it? And I see that Joe Biden has been tweeting today that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Well, he's a threat to many things. He might be a threat to Joe Biden winning the next election, but he's hardly a threat to democracy by running in an election, is he?
Well, he's a threat to the power of the quote-unquote elite that hate the American people. So we've been told for 3 years now that President Trump is a wannabe dictator. They're talking about him in the same sentence along with Hitler, with Mussolini. And the fact is, we were in power in the White House. President Trump has been president already. We didn't have a political police force. We didn't do things like this, Mike. Let me just give you a short list. We didn't raid the home of the prior president, Obama, with armed agents of the FBI, as they did to President Trump. We didn't arrest former assistants to Obama at Reagan National Airport, put them in leg chains, and then strip search them on a contempt of Congress charge. Biden did. So if there is a threat to quote-unquote democracy, even though we are a republic, the threat to democracy is extant. It is now. It is the Biden regime. We just found out in Congress that the so-called FISA, the secret court that is used to provide warrants to spy on terrorists, the FISA court system was used more than 200,000 times illegally against U.S. citizens. Not under our administration, Mike. It was done under Joe Biden's regime. So if there's a threat to democracy, Joe should look in the mirror.
And how many other states are actively looking, Sebastian, at doing the same thing as Colorado? And if so,
multiple ones. I played the. Well, look, this is so egregious, and the ballots for the primaries have to be printed very soon that, you know, God willing, when the U.S. Supreme Court is back in session, first week of January, they have to call this case. And they have to say, excuse me, you know, judges in Colorado can't ride roughshod over the rights of the American people. And look, let's be clear here. You can take Donald Trump out of the equation if you want, if you don't like him, and I don't have to mention his name. But right now, he is the de facto leader of the opposition. In the latest poll yesterday, this is a Harris-Harvard poll, he is 57 points ahead his nearest challenger, Nikki Haley, and he's 60 points ahead of the governor of Florida. That means he is the de facto leader of the opposition. This is about the fabric of our republic and being allowed to vote for somebody who isn't the incumbent, which is fine in Venezuela or North Korea, but it's not fine here, Mike.
It really isn't. And I mean, presumably Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis have yet to commit themselves to drop out as Vivek has done so.
Yeah, God bless Vivek. He's been on my show many times. I like the guy. He's smart. I'd like to see him in a second Trump administration in the cabinet or working, you know, what he understands, which is, you know, innovation, industry. He could be, you know, the Jared Kushner of a second Trump term. But no, DeSantis, incredibly, at a campaign event yesterday, he said, well, I don't know about this thing in Colorado. It's not good, but I'm doing really great in the polls. He made it about himself. I mean, if ever there's a moment to say, this is wrong, and I'm not going to talk about myself for 60 seconds, yesterday was the time not to talk about yourself, Ron, but he just couldn't resist. And that's why he's cratering. This week, his campaign manager from his super PAC, which is ironically entitled Never Back Down, Mike, his campaign manager resigned because even Jeff Rowe can see the writing on the wall for Ron.
Yeah, absolutely incredible stuff. Well, Sebastian, I look forward to seeing how this all plans out, but I can't believe they're going to get to stop Donald Trump, because with every move that they make, he just gets bigger and bigger in the ratings, doesn't he?
It's like, you know, I think we're of the same vintage, a very excellent vintage. It's like the original and best Star Wars, and I don't mean A New Hope, just Star Wars. When, you know, before the final battle, we have Ben Kenobi fencing with Darth Vader, and he says to his former student, if you try and strike me down now, I will be more powerful than you ever imagined. Well, that's what they're doing to my former boss. You know, how many indictments? He's facing 730 years in prison on garbage, trumped-up charges, and he's beating Biden in the polls 11 months before the election, and any rival who's challenging him on the right. So, you know, if they keep doing this to him, if there are a few more indictments, I think he'll be at maybe 110% in the polls.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Great to talk to you, Sebastian.